Hi guys, welcome to lesson 4, and we are going to be talking about dividing polynomials using long division. So if you'll recall back in grade school how you learn to divide numbers. So we're going to start there and we're going to apply it to polynomials. So you set it up like this, and you ask yourself, how many times can 25 go into 3? And obviously it can't, but 25 can go into 34 one time. So then I said 1 times 25 is 25. The next step is that you would subtract that. And I'm emphasizing that because that's a big step that people usually forget. So I'm going to take 34 minus 25, which is 9. And then the next step is I dropped the 2. Then I asked myself, how many times does 25 go into 92? And that would be 3 times. 3 times 25 is 75. And then again, I'm going to subtract that. And I end up with 17. Again, I'm going to drop the 3. So I have 173, and I'm going to ask myself, how many times does 25 go into 173? And that would be 6 times. 6 times 25 is 150. And then I'm going to subtract it. So 173 minus 150 is 23. And again, I'm going to drop that 4. So I have 234. 234, or 25 goes into 234 9 times. 9 times 25 is 225. Then I'm going to subtract it, and I get 9. Okay, so there is some different ways that you were taught after this. So you probably first said, okay, well, it's just remainder 9. But then your teacher's like, no, we learned about fractions. So we're going to take this and we're going to put this into a fraction, 9 over 25. We are going to use it in this form. So now we're going to transition over into polynomials, but we're going to use the same thing that we did before. Okay, so we're going to set it up in the same way. So this should not be too difficult. But what we're going to do is we are going to have this guy be our leader. So I'm going to ask myself, how many times does x go into, or how do I get from x, to 2x to the third? Well, I would need to multiply by a 2 because we're missing a 2. And then we have an x to the first here, and we need to get to x to the third. So I need to multiply by 2x squared. So that's that thought process there. So I'm going to erase all this stuff. So just like we did up here, we multiplied our numbers together. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to multiply these two together. So in my head, I'm going to come over here. Really what I'm doing is just distributing this 2x squared times x plus 3. So that I would have 2x to the third power plus 6x squared. And that's what I'm going to put underneath my numbers. So 2x to the third power plus 6x squared. Okay, my next step, remember, just as I said before, do not forget we are subtracting everything. So we're changing the signs, subtracting each term. So what happens is these cancel out, which they should, and then I'm going to combine these. So I'm left with negative 5x squared. And just like we did up here, we're going to drop that next term, minus 8x. Okay, so I'm going to go through the same process. So what do I need to multiply x by to get to negative 5x squared? Well, I'm missing a negative 5, and I have 1x here, and x squared there, so I'm missing an x. So let's kind of clear out everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing as I did before, and I'm going to take negative 5x times x plus 3. So when I do that, I have negative 5x squared minus 15x. And that's what I'm going to put underneath here. Okay, so as I said before, we're going to change the signs because we're subtracting. So that becomes a plus, that becomes a minus. And what happens is, again, these cancel out, and I'm left with negative 23x. I still have a 5 to bring down, so I'm going to do that. Okay, and so one more time, I'm going to ask myself, how do I go from here to here? What am I missing? And I'm missing a negative 23. So I'm going to take negative 23 times x plus 3. And you'll notice I'll have a negative 23x minus 69. And that's what I'm going to put underneath here. And so I'm going to change those signs. And I have these cancel out, and 69 plus 5 is 74. So this is my remainder. So I'm going to say plus, and just as we did over here, this is our remainder over 25. So we're going to do our remainder 74 over the number that we're dividing by, x plus 3. And this is my final answer. So there's a lot involved here, but you do the same thing every time. So we're going to go ahead and do this one, and just to kind of get that process down. And it's not, you're going to see it's not going to change. So the first thing is I'm going to use that as my guide. So what am I missing to get to 2x to the third? Well, I'm missing a 2 and I'm missing an x squared. So then I'm going to multiply these two together. So I have 2x to the third and then plus 6x squared. And then don't forget, you are going to subtract. So that means change the signs. So these cancel, and I'm left with negative 5x squared. Okay, I'm a dork. I just realized that this is the same thing. I just wanted to point out that these are just two different ways of showing the same thing. So anyway, let's go to this one. X minus 2, and then our polynomial is this. Okay, so what am I missing to go from here to here? I'm missing an x squared. So now I'm going to multiply the two together, and I get x to the third minus 2x squared. And then I'm going to change those signs. So if you'll notice, these cancel out, and I'm left with 7x squared, and then I'm going to drop it, minus 7x. So for my next term, I'm missing a 7, and I'm missing an x. So 7x times x is 7x squared. 7x times negative 2 is negative 14x. And then don't forget, you're going to change the signs. So I'm left with 7x and then drop down plus 2. So again, how do I get from here to here? I'm missing a 7. Do this in black. Okay, and then 7 times x minus 2 is 7x minus 14. And then I'm going to change my sign, and I'm left with 16. So I'm going to say plus, you always put a plus there because we're adding that fraction, 16 over x minus 2. And this is my final answer. So this one, I want you to try on your own, and then we'll come back. There's one little thing about different about this one and this one down here. So go ahead and start with this. Okay, so I showed my steps, and you should end up with 3x squared plus 2x minus 24 plus, notice that doesn't change, negative 64 over x minus 2. Okay, so what I want to point out, I'm going to get you started on this one, and then I'm going to turn you loose. What I want to point out on this one is that it goes from x to the third to just an x. So we're missing an x squared. So we need to account for that. So when I write this out, I'm going to say 2x to the third and then plus 0x squared. So what this is going to do, it's not going to affect my answer. it's just going to give me a little filler, and it helps me organize my numbers a little bit better. And then minus 8x plus 5. So go ahead and take it away from there. That's the only difference. Okay, so I showed my work here, and you should end up with 2x squared minus 6x plus 10 plus negative 25 over x plus 3. Okay, so the difference with this one is what you're dividing by is 3 terms. There's no difference besides that, but it makes it a little bit more complicated. I also want to point out that you are going from you are going from x squared to your constant, so that's where I put in a 0x. Okay, so we're still going to do the same thing. So we're going to ask ourselves, how do I get from here to this first term? Well, I'm missing a 5 and I'm missing an x. So the only difference is when I multiply these two together, you are multiplying that 5x to 3 terms. So it's going to be 5x to the third plus 10x squared plus 5x. And that's your only difference. Okay, so you should ended up with negative x squared minus 5x plus 5. Okay, so now I'm going to ask myself again, how do I go from x squared to negative 8x squared? And I'm missing a negative 8, so I'm going to multiply everything through here. So go ahead and do that. So you should be left with 11x plus 13. And here's where you know that you're done, because these get kind of confusing. I cannot take x squared into 11x. So I'm done. So this whole thing is my denominator. So I'm going to say plus 11x plus 13 over what I'm dividing by. And this is my final answer. So go ahead and do this last one. Okay, so your final answer should be 6x squared plus 30x plus 154 plus 763 over x minus 5. So in tomorrow's lesson, we are going to learn about synthetic division, and it's going to be so much easier, but we have to learn it this way because like for these types of problems here, you can't do it using synthetic division. So anyway, we are done.